welcome to a very special edition of College Football Insight. I'm Noah Breeden.
And I'm Lane Whitney. Today we are going to be going over all the things to do with the national championship between the Ohio State Buckeyes and Indiana's own Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
The Irish are seeking their first win over the Buckeyes in nearly 100 years, but before we get into that, we'll start it off by going over a recap over the four teams that led us here.
We had two excellent QB matchups last weekend, starting with Notre Dame's Riley Leonard leading the Irish to defeat Drew Allar and Penn State. Then on Friday, Will Howard led his Buckeyes to victory over Quinn Ewers and the Texas Longhorns.
In the Capital One Orange Bowl, Riley Leonard threw for just over 200 yards with a touchdown, as well as rushing the football for 18 times and getting into the end zone one time on the ground.
And in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, Will Howard had a great day, falling just short of 300 yards in the air and adding a touchdown to his season total, as well as having a 75-yard passing touchdown to running back Travion Henderson.
Notre Dame is seeking their 12th national championship, while Ohio State is seeking for their 8th. But Ohio State has had much better recent success, as their most recent national championship came in 2015, while Notre Dame's last championship was all the way back in 1988.
Both of these teams had an excellent season with a couple of bumps on their way to the championship. Notre Dame currently on the season has a record of 14-1, and Ohio State sits at 13-2 going into the championship game.
Notre Dame's lone loss came as a shocker in Week 2 to Northern Illinois, 16-14, losing with a block kick. Since then, the Irish have rallied up 7 ranked wins total. The 4 in the regular season were 2 huge wins over both the service academies, Army and Navy, and 2 wins within 10 points over Texas A&M and Louisville.
In the regular season, Ohio State was near perfect despite their loss to rival Michigan, continuing Michigan's 4-year streak over the Buckeyes. Their only other losses to the number 1 ranked team in the country, the Oregon Ducks.
Ohio State has also had their share of ranked wins, having 4 victories over top 5 opponents. 2 of those came in the regular season, where the Irish defeated Penn State by 7 and the Indiana Hoosiers by 18.
Here's Dion'ta to cover the offense of the Fighting Irish.
Thanks, guys. Notre Dame explosive offense is led by senior quarterback Riley Leonard. Leonard has thrown for a little over 2,600 yards on 19 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. Leonard stands at 6'4" and weighs 214, but his speed is what hurts teams. He rushed just for under 900 yards with 16 rushing touchdowns. A key to winning this game comes down to their dominant run game. Looking at the Notre Dame backfield, a future first-round draft pick, Jeremiah Love, has rushed for just under 1,200 yards on 159 carries and 17 touchdowns. The other key part of the best rushing team in the country is Jadarian Price. Price has just rushed for under 900 yards on 117 carries and got into the end zone 7 times. The previous mentioned success is largely credited on the big men up front. Notre Dame offensive lineman and quarterback Riley Leonard has been well protected all season, allowing him to get sacked less than 2 times per game. Looking at the wide receiver core, Senior Bo Coling has 37 receptions just for over 450 yards and 3 touchdowns. He is also questionable for the game due to an injury he has been battling, but is most likely going to play. At wide receiver 2 is sophomore Jaden Grayhouse with 36 receptions and 464 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's all the time for the Fighting Irish offense. Let's send it over to Ben.
Thanks, Dion'ta. Notre Dame has one of the best defenses in college football when it comes to turnovers, being number 1 in defense touchdowns. Overall, as a defense, Notre Dame has accumulated 23 sacks on 19 interceptions and 16 forced fumbles while allowing 14 points a game, which ranks them second right behind Ohio State. This incredible Notre Dame defense is led by senior captains Jack Kaiser, Ryle Mills. Mills has been a force with 37 total tackles, 19 of those being solo tackles, and 7.5 sacks. Another interior guy that has been very dominant is Donovan Hinish, who has 35 total tackles on 19 solo and 4.5 sacks. Looking at the linebackers for this defense, who are both from Hoosier country, starting with senior captain Jack Kaiser from Pioneer Junior Senior High School. He has 85 total tackles, 51 of those are solo with 2 sacks and 2 forced fumbles. Looking at the other linebackers, sophomore Drake Bowen from Andrian High School. Bowen has 70 tackles on the season, with 33 of those being solo, as well as 1 sack and 2 forced fumbles. Now looking at the corners from this lockdown defense, starting with freshman Leonard Moore, who has 29 solo tackles, 2 interceptions, and 2 forced fumbles. On the other side is sophomore Christian Gray, who has 23 solo tackles and 3 interceptions and 1 forced fumble. Now looking at the backside of this defense, senior Xavier Watts is a player to watch with 6 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, and 47 solo tackles. In 2023, Watts was awarded the Bronco Nagurski for leading the FBS with 7 interceptions. Looking at the other safety, Adon Schuler is just as dangerous with 3 interceptions and 1 forced fumble along with 33 solo tackles. Both of these defenses are scary to play against, so this should be a very fun game. That's all the time for Irish, sending it back to the studio. Thanks, guys.
Now we're going to be going over the coach leading Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman.
Freeman is looking for his first national championship, and ironically, to do so, he will have to beat his alma mater, Ohio State, where he graduated from in 2009 with a master's degree in sports management. He also had a good enough college football career to get selected in the 5th round of the 2009 draft to the Chicago Bears.
His career ended up being cut short just a year later due to a heart condition, forcing him into an early medical retirement. The same year in 2010, he accepted the role to be a graduate assistant for the Ohio State Buckeyes, which lasted just a year. Then he spent a year at Kent State as a position coach, and the next 10 years he was spent as a coordinator for Purdue and then Cincinnati, before going to Notre Dame to fill the opening of the defensive coordinator and linebacker coach role.
Following the 2021 season, Brian Kelly accepted the head coach position for LSU, which led to Freeman filling in the head coach job.
And here's Jeremy to cover the powerful Ohio State defense.
Thanks, guys. This dominant Ohio State offense is led by previously mentioned quarterback Will Howard. Howard stands at 6'4" and weighs in at 235, which helped him get into the end zone 7 times on the ground this season. Through the air, he is simply one of the best in the country, throwing for just under 4,000 yards with 33 touchdowns and only 10 interceptions. In the backfield, Buckeyes have 2 strong runners leading the way, Travion Henderson and Quinshawn Judkins. Henderson is just short of 1,000 rushing yards on the season on 132 carries, and he averages just 7 yards per carry while managing to get into the end zone 10 times. Judkins also is just short of 1,000 yards on the season with 183 carries, averaging just over 5 yards a carry and getting into the end zone 12 times. Ohio State is known as wide receiver university. They did not fall short on that this season. At wide receiver 1 is 19-year-old freshman Jeremiah Smith. He caught 71 passes for over 1,200 yards, averaging 17 yards per reception and 14 touchdowns. Right behind him on the depth chart is senior Omeka Ibuka, hauling in 95 receptions, just short of 1,000 yards, and getting into the end zone 10 times. Of course, you can't have a good offense without a great O-line, and Ohio State has just that. The Buckeyes have rushed for a combined 2,500 yards with over 160 yards per game, as well as less than 1 sack allowed per game. That's all for the offense. Now we're going to send it over to Clay to cover the dominant Ohio State defense.
Thank you, Jeremy. Ohio State's defense has been only giving up 12 points per game and under 200 yards against them on average. The Buckeyes defense is led by senior captains Jack Sawyer and Cody Simon. Jack Sawyer has had a fantastic season and is a large part of this team moving forward. In the playoffs last week against Texas, due to a strip sack that he recovered, he has 9 total sacks on the season, 3 forced fumbles, and 3 recoveries, and an interception. Another interior lineman who deserves recognition is JT Tuimoloau, who had nearly 12 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and nearly 60 tackles. Linebacker Cody Simon leads the Buckeyes in tackles, racking up over 100 on the season. He also has 7 sacks and a forced fumble. Arviel Reese, who has had a fantastic season, 2 total tackles and half a sack. The Buckeyes defense is especially solid at the DB position. At strong safety is Alabama transfer Caleb Downs, who is one of the best players overall in the country. He is just under 7 passes defended. He's joined by Sonny Styles, who just fell short of 100 tackles and has 5 sacks and a forced fumble. That's all of our insight on the Buckeyes. Back to you guys in the studio.
Not only does Notre Dame have a deep coaching experience, but so do the Buckeyes, getting led by 45-year-old Ryan Day.
Day attended Manchester High School in New Hampshire, where he played quarterback and defensive back. He also won the state's Gatorade Player of the Year his senior year.
He then committed to New Hampshire to play for then offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. And his time at UNH, he set 4 career records, including touchdowns and completion percentage.
He then spent 3 years as a graduate assistant for Boston College and then Florida. And after that, he spent 12 years as a college position coach for Temple and Boston College before landing a job with the Eagles to be a quarterback coach in 2015. And then in 2016, he moved to San Francisco to take over their quarterback role in 2016.
A year later, he was back coaching college football as he picked up the offensive coordinator role with his current team, Ohio State. Since then, he's been elevated to the head coaching job and hasn't looked back since.
Now we're going to be sending it over to Jay for a special segment of staff predictions.
Today we'll be asking Monrovia Athletic staff what their score predictions for the Ohio State-Notre Dame National Championship.
Notre Dame 27-21.
Score prediction for the Notre Dame-Ohio State National Championship.
Ohio State 31, Notre Dame 17. Sorry, Irish. Go Dogs.
Go Buckeyes or go Irish.
I'm going to take the Buckeyes 34-24.
The Ohio State or the Fighting Irish.
The Fighting Irish, baby. 38-25.
Thanks, Jay. Tune in Monday at 7:30 for the national championship on ESPN. Thanks for watching.
Go Irish.